This was the softening up process to prepare the way for our amphibious landing forces. Planes by the hundred and ships by the score were accounted for by the task force of which the Franklin was a part. Rocket-equipped planes played havoc with Jap shipping. They struck like lightning, and seldom was there need for any more working over. Now the kamikaze boys were in earnest. They were deliberately trying to crash on any ship they could. They got plenty of assistance in crashing. But they were persistent and kept boring in. Often they were too close for comfort. One day, 4 of them started at once. 2 were shot down, the 3rd just missed, but the 4th kept coming at 300 miles an hour, and finally crashed on the flight deck. This sent the Franklin back to the States for major repairs. And just 4 months later, we pick up her Saga as she draws up to Ford Island at Pearl Harbor. She didn't create much fuss. Only one small band played Aloha. The real welcome was tendered by a party of 50 waves, a glee club, by the way, who were shown around the ship. They stayed for the awarding of combat decorations to a returning air group. The presentation was made by Vice Admiral Murray, commander of aircraft in the Pacific. Air Groups 75 and 35 came aboard for refresher exercises in the Hawaiian area. These combat teams and our own Air Group number 5 needed some sharpening up, and we're going to get it. The deck of a carrier is roughly divided in thirds. At the bow is fly 1, center fly 2, and fly 3 at the stern. Fly Officer 1 signals takeoffs. Look out there. If you step on those brakes too hard, you'll wind up on your nose. And this signal means rev it up, more speed. Distance changes the towering bulk of a carrier to a slim, graceful ship streaking through the water at 28 knots. The greater her speed, the easier she launches her plane. The white diamond on the wings and tail surfaces identifies the plane as belonging to the Franklin. When coming in for a landing, that carrier deck, 80 by 800 feet, looks like a very small postage stamp on a very big ocean. Setting a fighter plane on a carrier deck is a trick not learned overnight. It takes at least 2 men, the pilot and the LSO, the landing signal officer. He's a veteran pilot who knows both the plane and his ship. When the approach is not to his liking, he says, "Keep going and try again sometime." The LSO actually nurses every one of those planes down to a perfect landing with body English, a few prayers, and the mandatory signal with the right-hand paddle, "Cut your engine," to a perfect landing as the arresting gear grabs the tail hook. His opinion of some approaches would blister the ears off the pilot concerned if he could hear it. Cut. But up on our nose into the barrier, and a new propeller needed. Exercises over, we were on our way back to Pearl. The Airedales, which is Navy slang for flyers, had little to do but sunbathe. That night, there was a party aboard. The guest of honor at the executive table was fortunate enough to pull the brass ring on the merry-go-round of flying carrier-based planes and make the 9,000th landing on the deck of the Franklin. Ensign Graff was to make many more fast takeoffs and hurried landings before the story of the Franklin was committed to its log. Morning quarters on a flat-top flight deck is a colorful, loud-colored jerseys for quick identification with their jobs. Red shirts are fueling crews. Yellow shirts are plane directors. and blue shirts armorers who load the planes, guns, and bombs. The minute the ship left port, neckties were dropped along with many other formalities of dress and behavior. The enlisted men wore dungarees and the traditional white hats were dyed blue. However informal the dress, the standards of smartness and cleanliness were still high. Any man who stood inspection needing a haircut got his orders fast and the haircut too. When the executive officer was satisfied that things were ship-shape, the tour ended and everyone off to his station. The refresher exercises were coming to an end. When we were within a few hours of Pearl Harbor, air groups 35 and 75 were ordered to their shore fields. They took off a lot more smartly than they did when we first joined up together. Now they were flying teams, integrated, used to each other and to our ship. They saw Diamond Head long before we did, and headed for the Naval Air Station at Kaneohe. Supplies and stores had to be taken aboard, the thousands of varied items needed to stock a floating airfield for weeks to come. The facilities available for rest and recreation in the Hawaiian Islands have long been world famous, and our flyers took proper advantage of them. The wonderful surf bathing at Waikiki, and shooting the beach on mile-long rollers in native outrigger canoes.